Hey folks, Ariel over here. Today I am harvesting onions. It's a nice cool fall day. I think it's about 52 degrees out here. It's wonderful to finally have some good normal weather. And what I'm doing is harvesting onions. Just thought I'd give a little update on how the gardening went this summer because I didn't have a lot of time to film gardening stuff overall. The onion crop did quite well. And there's empty spaces here. I've used quite a few in the last few months while we've been, just cooking and stuff. But the rest, as you can see, almost all the tops have toppled over. That one hasn't quite, but he's close. Got some pretty good looking onions. Anyway, picking the rest, gonna hang them up to dry. We should be able to enjoy them for the next year. So the onion harvest is good. It has just been a busy summer with working on the house. I'm looking forward to hopefully this being the last time that's the case. After the house, no more big building projects here, hopefully ever again in our lifetime, and it can just focus on the normal things like the gardening, the planting, picking, harvesting, weeding, and so on. But overall, the garden did pretty well. It was a tough summer in that it was really hot for our area. We had a lot of weather into the 90s. I lived in Wyoming for 15 consecutive years that never got out of the 70s ever in the summer, not once. So it was hotter than normal and very, very dry. We did get a rain shower last night. We've had a few over the past few weeks, and that has been wonderful. But for 3 months of the summer, we went with almost no rain. So there was times this summer where I felt like I was doing nothing but watering. Either the garden or the planters or the little trees and bushes that we are getting going. Some of them will not need, that much care for most of their life, or they shouldn't anyway. But right now, when they're newly planted or just planted last year, etc., they need some help. So it did feel like I spent a significant portion of the year watering. I've never known why, when the majority of things grow this big, one that, as far as I know, is the same kind of plant, sitting in the same soil, right between two nice big ones. It's a nice onion, but I don't know why it's just little. I think that's just individual genetic differences between individual plants. Anyway, so given that the heat was very stressful, we don't grow crops here that like heat because normally we don't have it. And even with the extreme heat, we had a longer than normal time without frost. But longer than normal means I think we actually had 9 weeks between killing freezes. We had one at the end of June that it, hailed, snowed, froze off the corn that was growing and so on. And then we didn't have one until, I don't know, a couple weeks ago now, something like that. We had another one that was like 28 degrees. It's supposed to freeze tonight. It should be freezing every night at this time of year. Anyway, so even with that, there's still only, most warm weather crops need much more than 9 weeks to grow from, a seed or a seedling into whatever finished crop you're ready to harvest. So, still can't grow much of the warm weather stuff for the most part, but the heat stresses the cold weather crops. So you can see why that can be a bit of a dilemma. Some of the things, the onions did well. Beans like the heat, but I don't think beans like our soil or something here, because quite a few years now I've tried different varieties and they're all froze now. Well, nearly. There's a few green leaves down underneath, but the tops are all blackened. They just always make small and kind of curly beans and don't produce well no matter what variety I try. Whereas onions seem to make great big ones no matter what I do, so I think they're just happy here because I don't know that I do anything in particular. And that thing's pretty good looking onion. So some things did well, some things did not. I got more summer squashes, zucchinis, yellow crookneck, all those kinds of things than I often would because they like the heat. Got plenty of cabbage. I did, I think, 9 gallons of sauerkraut, no, maybe 11 gallons of sauerkraut. Did not do any Christmas cabbage this year because I had such spectacular harvests the last 2 years of purple cabbage that I didn't even plant any this year because I still had plenty. But the cabbage heads didn't look that great. They got big and nice and firm. Well, medium big. I've had bigger. But they kind of dehydrated on the outside, almost the same way an onion gets these papery skin layers on the outside. The cabbages started doing that. I've never had them do that before, but they did this year, and I think it was just the heat. Normally they're still growing and green right until I usually pick them when it's snowing, when there is snow on them, and I've never had them go brown on the outside layers like that before, but that's what they did. Still made some nice cabbage. Got a good picking of peas early on, and then even though it tried to flower a little more and make some more peas, they were kind of pithy and bitter. Again, I think that was probably the heat. Like where I grew up in Pennsylvania, you don't grow peas through the middle of summer. You grow them spring and or maybe fall because they don't like heat. Here, usually I've been able to, again, pick peas kind of right up till the snow flies, but not so much this year. So anyway, overall, I don't have the garden produce totals. I'm just getting the bulk of the onions out of here now, and I still have, we've used some, but I still have potatoes to harvest the rest of, carrots and beets. So basically the root crops, and most of the things across the garden are either dead or dying back. So I don't have my crop totals yet. I don't think we're going to break any records on the produce this year. Most years we get close to 1,000 pounds of food out of this 600 square feet of space. But I think we're going to be somewhere in the 800-900 pound range, which is still pretty respectable, and a lot of good food. I was really happy that last year, and I think we're going to have comparable stuff this year. Last year, my goal is to always grow enough food to last for a whole year, because I'm harvesting onions now, and I'll have new onions again a little before this time next year. Like, I've already used some of these, that's why there's empty holes. I've used that whole row down to there on that side of the bed. But it's actually getting warm in the sun. I think there are some more clouds coming shortly. My goal is to grow enough that I can eat my own onions until there are more of my own onions, and the same with other crops. So in the past year, that did work. We ate our own onions right up until I was pulling fresh onions this year. I even still had a couple left. Put them into a batch of salsa I made with my brother. I ate our own potatoes right up until we were pulling new potatoes, and we again actually had some left. The last few were, the root cellar kept them really well, but the last few, by early summer, we're starting to get a little shrivelly and sprouty, and so they went to either feeding the mealworms because they like them, or a few just went in the compost. But they lasted me the whole year. That's all I can ask of a crop of potatoes. Same with garlic, lasted the whole year. I used the rest of it when we made spaghetti sauce, and I'd already harvested garlic for this year. Christmas cabbage lasted the whole year. I ate the last of the sauerkraut right about when I picked the first cabbage head for this year. So that's kind of the rotation I'm hoping for, at least of the crops that we can grow and or preserve. I had enough green beans and peas and asparagus and broccoli, all blanched and frozen last year, that I was able to eat those as green veggies all through the year until I had new ones of them coming in, so that was lovely. So anyway, overall I was just really happy with how everything held out for the two of us eating, plus whenever we give a jar of this or that to friends as a gift, or somebody's over and we have more people for a meal or whatever, all that put together, our food held out through a full year until we had more. And that's the whole goal, so that we can continue to eat the stuff that we raise. So anyway, hopefully this next year will be comparable. I think it will on most things, though I got a little less peas, green beans, even the broccoli started. Usually I can pick those shoots right up until the snow flies, and they started just bolting and getting tough and bitter. I'm pretty sure that was heat related. But then, like I said, I got way more squashes than I normally do. We've eaten lots and lots of squash soup, grilled squashes, sauteed with butter squashes. I dehydrated squashes to put in soups through the winter, and so on. So it kind of works out. Usually every year, whatever doesn't do as well, something else does better, and so that's how gardening goes. So overall, happy with the garden. It's at the time of year where I'm harvesting the last of things, and I continue harvesting the onions, and I got a few in a bed over there. Then I will hang them up to dry, and I've got to get, like I said, other root veggies out, and then it's pretty much time to just clear. We could be getting snow any day now. We often have some snow before this, so clear off the dying vegetation here, get it in the compost pile to make more soil, use some of my fully broken down compost. You can see videos of how I do that the lazy way. I just pile it, ignore it for a while, and then a year or two later I have beautiful compost. Get some compost hopefully on the bed surfaces again before winter. I kind of like that as a blanket to keep all the microbes and everything tucked in and happy on the soil surface, because usually there's no bare ground here. There is right now. I'm making it as I'm pulling last things out, but all summer there's things growing on it, and all winter I like to keep it blanketed under compost, which then gets blanketed under snow normally. So anyway, time to clean that out. We've still got some greens, you know, some chards and kales and stuff. Most of the lettuce bolted because that does not like heat either. And then the garden will be tucked in for winter. So that's how the garden's done this year. Overall, very pleased, given that the weather was kind of tough to deal with. And it still produced us a massive amount of our own food. And that's just out of this little, it's about 600 feet of bed space here that we're growing in. That doesn't count, you know, the beehives, the chickens laying eggs, the orchard trees, all that kind of stuff. But as far as, you know, vegetable things, root crops, this is the space we're growing them in, and it's plenty adequate for providing a full year's worth supply of the things that we can grow for 2 people. So hopefully that is helpful if you like following our garden journey, and if you want to grow stuff of your own, you can grow a significant amount of food in a small space. I know sometimes people think that, well, I can't grow food because I don't have acres and acres of ground. Well, for quite a few years now, I've produced the majority of all the stuff we eat in a pretty tough climate, and this is what, again, most of you could grow this as a fall or spring garden, or both, or winter garden, depending on your climate. And if you are warmer, you could grow more other things in between. I can't grow tomatoes without a greenhouse, for instance, and so on. So, you know, a lot of people could plant all of this stuff that I just grew as their spring crop, and then grow corn, tomatoes, pumpkins, sweet potatoes, watermelons, all the things, peppers, all the things that like heat, and then maybe grow all this again. So if you were doing that, just rough estimate, you could be getting 3,000 or 4,000 pounds of food out of a space this big, which you may not need unless you have a larger family. So then you may want only a couple hundred square feet instead of 600 square feet. So anyway, that works. I've also got through here a few birds and stuff drop the seeds around. This is a little, I know this is a hyssop of some kind. It has wonderful licoricey mint smelling leaves. I did not plant it here, it just sprouted, but I'll probably dig it up because they get to be a fairly big perennial plant. I don't want it actually in this bed because I want to put other things here next year. But some things like that I'll dig up and put somewhere around under our trees and stuff where I do want more of the perennial flowers growing. And that's what I'm in the process of, is putting the garden to bed for the year and picking the last stuff. Depending where you are, you might not be anywhere close to done gardening, and it might be an ideal time for you to plant a lot of these crops. Peas like cool weather, lettuces like cool weather, onions like cool weather, but they take a while to grow, so unless you've got a place that doesn't freeze much through the whole winter, it might be too late for planting them. Cabbage and broccoli likes cool weather. Potatoes grow relatively well in the cooler weather, and so on. We are headed from our cool weather expectation to planning on well below freezing, staying below freezing, and lots of snow. So we are past the cool weather season and into fall rapidly turning into winter, we hope. Anyway, hopefully that inspires you and you grow something yourself, however little space you have. It's always the best tasting, the most nutritious, and the most fun. It's just wonderful to see things grow, see the soil grow and change as you add compost and the soil texture, and nutrients and all the microbes I can't even see get better and better over time and so on. It's just a really fun thing to do. I think gardening is wonderful for many reasons aside from its food production. So that's how our gardening went this summer. Hopefully next year there'll be a lot more videos on it when we're not quite so busy with building. And apparently I was wrong, because while I still don't think we'll break any records on our overall harvest, after weighing all these onions, we had just shy of 150 pounds of onions, which beats my previous 110-pound total, which was my former biggest onion harvest ever. So that's exciting.